Well, newly elected KwaZulu-Natal Premier Nomusa Dube-Ncube has unveiled her cabinet. Well, former Premier, this is what we spoke about before the break, Sihle Zikalala is still involved, while new ANC KZN chairperson Siboniso Duma is the MEC for Economic Development. Well, for the first time, the majority of the executive members are women. For analysis of this executive committee, joined by political analyst Zakhele Ndlovu from KZN. Always good to have Zakhele on the show. Morning. Let's start, first of all, I think with what not many people are surprised, just more interested, Zakhele, about keeping Sihle Zikalala in the cabinet. What did you make of that?
Well, the interesting part is that the Education MEC and I believe Human Settlement MEC were not retained. And remember, these were the people who were in the top 5 of the Sihle Zikalala slate. Now, as you just correctly pointed out, Sihle Zikalala is now the Cogta MEC. I think that the reason why they retained him is because they want to project this image that there are no divisions in the ANC, that as you know, they talk about renewal, unity, and all that. So I think that they are trying to send a message that we are not as divided as many people believe. So I think that's the main reason why Sihle Zikalala was retained.
Let's talk about the choice for a moment of the new Premier, Nomusa Dube-Ncube. There was a lot of people before and even after the nominations and the acceptance of the position of Premier, Zakhele, that honestly thought it was going to be Duma to be the obvious choice as the Premier. But there's also been talk for a long time in KZN to get its first female Premier. Was that your sense as well? Was this more a case of not only is Nomusa very qualified for the position, but she also happens to be a woman, so therefore it would be able to tick both of those boxes?
Yeah, in a way, we could make that argument. But I think for me, the reason why Mr. Duma decided not to take the position of Premier is because it should have been seen as some kind of a power grab. And so it was a strategic move in terms of ANC politics. And of course, the election of Nomusa Dube as Premier, I think, they just wanted to make a statement that KwaZulu-Natal takes seriously the issue of women empowerment. And so having a woman Premier for the first time in KwaZulu-Natal would make Nomusa Dube-Ncube sort of like a role model for young girls, even in rural parts of KwaZulu-Natal. So I think it's an interesting choice, and it's made in the month that we call Women's Month. So it was a nice gesture in that sense.
Do you suspect that the new Premier is going to have to deal with the legacy of the former Premier, Sihle Zikalala, especially towards the end when he was bowing out, having to reaffirm his support for the former President Jacob Zuma, dispelling the notion that he had forsaken Zuma for President Ramaphosa? It was one of the last questions that he had to address as the outgoing Premier. Do you think the new Premier is going to have to try and live with that ongoing legacy of Zuma versus Ramaphosa?
Well, that's interesting. I think that Sihle Zikalala, part of the reason why he did not do well at the last conference is because of that perception that he did not do enough to show support for former President Jacob Zuma. I think any politician at this point in time in KZN would want to be seen to be sympathetic to the former president and actually showing support for him, because he is definitely a force in KZN politics. There's a lot of support among, particularly, I would say, the rural people and generally the people who feel that he's being persecuted. So if you are a political leader, you would want, in the ANC I'm talking about, you would want to be seen to be sympathetic to former President Jacobs.
Just on that, Zakhele, just briefly, and our last question to you, if you could, I'm curious to get your thoughts on whenever a new Premier comes, and we have to ask, because we all know about the factions within the ANC, would the new Premier be Nomusa Dube-Ncube, would she be pro-Ramaphosa or anti-Ramaphosa? I'm asking the question because we know at the KZN elective conference, they had to settle the crowd down. The delegates settled them down when the president wanted to come on stage and speak to them, asking the comrades to behave themselves. How do you see her, and which side of the fence does she sit on?
Well, I think, first of all, let me just say that it is very unfortunate that we have to talk about whose side is the premier is going to be on. I think we should be talking more about what this premier is going to bring in terms of helping the province of KwaZulu-Natal deal with issues of unemployment, poverty, inequality, dysfunctional municipalities, and then a lot of lawlessness and violence in the province. So I think that's what we should be focusing. But anyway, to answer your question, I would say that, as I indicated, any politician in KwaZulu-Natal runs the risk if they choose not to show that they are sympathetic to the former president, and that's Jacob Zuma. But, you know, the ANC is preparing for the national conference in December. And I think that the province of KwaZulu-Natal clearly has taken a position, and the new premier would be well served if she's seen to be on the side of those who deployed him, and that is the Sihle Zikalala state.
Yeah, I agree. But we should be talking about what changes the new premier is going to make. But as we all know, when it comes to the ANC these days, you can't have a conversation about new leadership. Unfortunately, Zakhele, I'm sure you agree, without talking about those factions. We should be talking about what changes they're going to be bringing in. So I completely do agree with you.